At 12:41 a.m. on March 8, 2014, a plane carrying 239 people lifted quietly into the night sky. Supposed to be a routine flight. A simple journey from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Nothing unusual. Nothing suspicious. But less than an hour later, something happened. The aircraft suddenly vanished from radar. No distress call. No emergency signal. No clear explanation. A massive Boeing 777, one of the most advanced passenger aircraft ever built, simply disappeared. And more than a decade later, the world is still asking the same chilling question. How can a plane that large, carrying hundreds of people, vanish without a trace? This is the mystery of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 departed Kuala Lumpur International Airport just after midnight. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members. Families traveling together. Businessmen heading to meetings. Students returning home. Inside the cockpit were two experienced pilots. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah had more than 18,000 hours of flight experience. Everything about the flight appeared completely normal. The weather was clear. The aircraft had no reported mechanical problems, and the route was one of the busiest and safest air corridors in the world. At 1:19 a.m., the pilots made their final radio transmission to air traffic control. Good night, Malaysian 370. Those 5 words would become some of the most haunting in aviation history, because just minutes later, the aircraft disappeared. Shortly after the final message, air traffic controllers noticed something strange. MH370 stopped responding. Its transponder, the system that tells radar where the plane is, suddenly went silent. At first, controllers assumed it was a technical issue, but then something even more disturbing happened. Military radar detected the aircraft turning sharply away from its planned route. Instead of continuing toward Beijing, the plane made a dramatic turn back across the Malaysian peninsula. And then it continued flying west, out over the dark waters of the Indian Ocean. No one on the ground knew why. The plane wasn't supposed to go there, and yet, it did. For the next several hours, the aircraft continued flying silently. No communication, no distress signal, nothing. Then, at around 8:19 a.m., a satellite received one final signal from the aircraft. A weak, electronic handshake. It suggested the plane had been flying for nearly 7 hours after it vanished from radar. And then, silence. MH370 disappeared forever. What followed was one of the biggest search operations the world had ever seen. More than 25 countries joined the effort. Ships, aircraft, satellites, submarines. They searched millions of square kilometers of ocean. The operation focused on the remote southern Indian Ocean, one of the most isolated places on Earth. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. But the ocean kept its secret. No wreckage. No survivors. Nothing. It was as if the aircraft had simply been erased from existence. For over a year, investigators had almost no evidence. Then, in July 2015, something washed ashore on a remote island in the Indian Ocean. It was a piece of airplane wing. Experts soon confirmed it belonged to MH370. More debris followed. Small fragments discovered along the coasts of Africa and nearby islands. The pieces proved that the aircraft had indeed crashed somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. But they didn't reveal why, or exactly where. The main wreckage of the plane was still missing. Without answers, theories began to spread. Some believed the plane suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure. Others suggested a sudden fire or decompression may have disabled the crew. But investigators struggled to find evidence supporting these explanations. Another theory was far more disturbing. What if someone inside the cockpit intentionally changed the course of the aircraft? Plane's strange turn and long flight path raised questions about whether the disappearance was deliberate. Some experts pointed toward the captain, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. But investigators found no clear evidence linking him to a planned act. Friends described him as calm and professional. The mystery only deepened. One of the most chilling possibilities is something aviation experts call a ghost flight. If the cabin lost oxygen, suddenly passengers and crew could lose consciousness within minutes. The aircraft could then continue flying on autopilot, hour after hour, across the empty ocean, until it finally ran out of fuel and fell silently into the sea. This theory would explain the satellite signals and the long flight south, but it still leaves one haunting question. What caused the initial turn away from the flight path? In 2018, after years of searching and more than $200 million spent, the official search for MH370 ended. Investigators admitted something few people expected to hear. They still did not know what happened. The aircraft's main wreckage had never been found. Without the flight recorders, the so-called black boxes, the truth remained hidden. 239 lives had vanished into one of the greatest mysteries of the modern world. Even today, researchers and investigators continue to search for clues. Oceanographers study currents to predict where the wreckage might lie. Engineers analyze satellite data again and again. Families of the passengers still hope that one day answers will come, because somewhere, deep beneath the waves of the Indian Ocean, the remains of flight MH370 are still waiting to be found. In an age of satellites, GPS, and global communication, it seems impossible that something as large as a passenger jet could simply disappear. And yet, it did. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 left behind no final message, no clear explanation, only silence. And one of the most haunting mysteries aviation has ever known. A plane took off into the night with 239 people on board. And somewhere over the vast darkness of the ocean, it vanished.